Now, wouldn't it be true that in an increasingly competitive world that we would want to make sure we do a really good job in education? And we do a really good job up to the university level. University level and college level, we don't do a good job at all. But public spending, and I got this information I'm about to give you now just before my book went to the publisher. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I looked at it, I said, that can't possibly be true. And I checked it with some of the best education experts in all of Canada. And what was it that made me so incredulous? Public spending on education in Canada as a percentage of GDP, incredibly, we're now 57th in the world. 57th in the world. I mean, that's preposterous. That's overall, total. Where else? The first chapter is devoted to healthcare. All of you know what's going on in the healthcare system in Canada, but I don't know how many of you know that we're 54th in the world in terms of the number of doctors that we have in Canada per 100,000 population. 54th. Cuba has, where is it here? 591 doctors per 100,000. Canada has 214 doctors per 100,000 population. Is it any wonder that 2, 3, 4, 5 million Canadians can't find a family doctor? Is it any wonder there's such a mess in our emergency rooms right across the country? Where else are we 54th? All Canadians know that we are a great peacekeeping country, right? We're now 54th again in terms of peacekeeping. 54th. We used to be, third or fourth or fifth, and we're now down to, there's a single Canadian officer in the United Nations peacekeeping headquarters in New York. Well, a few words about a topic you may have heard me speak on before, the question of foreign direct investment, and the question of the takeover of our country, mostly by Americans, but not exclusively. 23 years ago, Brian Mulroney abolished the Foreign Investment Review Agency, and he replaced it with the Mickey Mouse organization called Investment Canada that should be dumped into the Ottawa River. Since that time, there have been 10,924 Canadian companies taken over by non-residents. Canadian companies of all kinds that you can possibly think of, resource companies, retail companies, wholesale companies, etc., research companies, whatever. The amount of the takeovers worked out to, this is till the end of March of this year, in the last 23 years, worked out to $847 billion worth of takeovers monitored by Investment Canada. $847 billion. Now that's a huge amount of money. Now, without cheating, if you've read my book already, what percentage of that $847 billion was for takeovers, and what percentage was for the new business investment? Because after all you have to do is read Stephen Harper or Tom DeQuino or the rest of them. Foreign direct investment is really good for us because it creates new businesses and creates new jobs, right? So of that $847 billion, what percentage was for takeovers and what percentage was for new business investment? Who wants to take a guess? 95 what? Isn't that awfully high?
Yeah.
Anybody else want to take a guess? Well, the staggering total of 97.6% was for takeovers of businesses in Canada, and a puny, awful 2.4% was for new business investment. And again, next time you hear somebody like Mr. Stelmach or whoever, or somebody from one of these right-wing organizations say, we must have foreign direct investment in this country, what they're saying, based on 23 years of experience, 23 years is a long time, is we must have more takeovers of Canadian businesses. And as you've heard me say before, what exactly is it that is going to be left for your children and your grandchildren? I mean, are you people content to live in a country where your kids and your grandchildren can grow up being serfs or tenants in their own country? There's no other country in the world that would dream of allowing the degree of foreign ownership and control that we now have in this country. Well, a couple of other things. Most Canadians know supposedly how good we are in peacekeeping, and it turns out, wait a minute, we're 54th in peacekeeping. It was our Lester Pearson who helped establish the goal of 0.07% of foreign aid so that we would be one of the most compassionate countries in the world. We always think of ourselves as compassionate peacekeepers, and somewhere here in this binder I've got some information about where we stand on foreign aid, because it's pretty important. And by the way, my book is dedicated to the wonderful people who, I saw a film of theirs put together the other day, and on helping children in Afghanistan. It was one of the most amazingly interesting, and it brought tears to my eyes, watching these young girls, 8, 9, and 10 years of age, who were being assisted by the by UNICEF, and plowing through snow this high because there's no roads into remote mountain areas and opening schools for these young girls. And you should have seen the looks on the faces of these girls. And so aren't we Canadians proud of what we do in terms of our foreign aid? I'm going to read to you just briefly from my chapter from the beginning of my chapter on foreign aid. Before we go on to look at Canada's truly dismal foreign aid record, let's consider what needs to be done and what adequate levels of foreign aid can accomplish. We all know about the 3,000 people who were killed in the tragic destruction of the World Trade Center's Twin Towers. But Jeffrey Sachs, the wonderful world economist, says that every morning our daily newspaper should report, quote, more than 20,000 perished yesterday of extreme poverty. Or let me, Mel Hertig, suggest a different headline. 28,000 children under the age of 5 will die today of easily preventable causes. Or how about this as a headline in the paper? Tomorrow, every 30 seconds, a child whose life could have been saved will die from malaria. In Africa, 3,000 children will die tomorrow from malaria, while many more will be left with lifetime brain damage or paralysis. UNICEF tells us that of all the deaths today of children under the age of 5 years, the underlying cause of 53% is malnutrition, or put another way, not enough food. Many thousands of children die every day because of the lack of aid money and the lack of political will and public commitment. Eliminating or controlling the leading causes of child deaths is possible, but somehow the plight of vulnerable children is not on our politicians' radar screen, and that certainly is the case in Canada, where we've dropped now down to 16th place of a list of 23 countries that supply foreign aid. And I don't know about you, but I think that's disgraceful. Yeah. I think an affluent country like Canada, to be at that level in terms of our assistance to underprivileged people, men, women, and children in particular, around the world, is absolutely disgraceful.